Want to start recording? Thank you, Mike. Okay, we are going to get going with the Town of Ashford Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, July 8th, 2024. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Thumbs up, a nod, a yes, thank you. Okay. At this point in time, I do definitely need someone to sit in for Jeff Schillinger. He had a death in the family. He's not able to make it. Alex, can I seat you for that?
Yes.
You were first on, okay. And if anyone sees any other members come up after you sat alternates, then please, let me know. But Steve, for right now, I'm going to seat you for Dick Williams.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Jerry just came on.
I saw Jerry. Yep, thank you. Okay, it's falling on deaf ears to the members who aren't here, but it's not half as uncomfortable sitting here for 5 minutes before the meeting. So if you feel like you want to come on 5 minutes ahead, no one's going to pick on you. No one's going to laugh at your background or anything like that. So please feel free to join 5 minutes ahead so we can start on time. Thank you. That's my only nudge for the set for tonight. I promise. Okay, so we have the seating of alternates. Doug, I see, is not on as the other alternate. So
Doug's going to be a few minutes late, Jeff, but he will be here.
Oh, okay, thank you very much, Luther. So seated for right now, just to be clear for Valerie, we've got Tom Hastings, Luther Brauch, Janet Bellamy, Jerry Dufresne, Mark Schnabel, myself, and seated for Dick Williams, we have Steve Pesch, and seated for Jeff Schillinger, Alex Castillo. Thank you. Moving on to the minutes from not June, but the May meeting. Does anyone have any, do I hear a motion to approve? And we'll have discussion if needed. Or again, any input, I'll take it right now if you want. Any issues with the minutes from the May meeting?
I'll motion to approve, but I have an adjustment. On page 3 at the bottom, where Valerie quotes me, I said stated that we find the middle ground between, instead of keeping the land undeveloped, I said protecting the environment and allowing business.
That's under, you said number 3?
On the bottom of page 3, at least that's the way my
Oh, bottom of page 3. I'm sorry.
bottom of page 3. The last paragraph.
Yep. Middle ground, we keep the land under. And your wording, it was not land undeveloped, it was
Protecting the environment.
protecting the environment. Okay. Thank you. I actually haven't seen those minutes posted as of yet, actually. Mike, do you know anything about the posting on those?
No, I know that Karen was out. She was on vacation, so I think she just got back at the end of last week, so she may not have had the chance to post them.
Okay.
This is the 513 set.
Yes.
Yeah, I can check on that. I'll check on that tomorrow.
Any other changes or updates from anyone? Hearing none, there is a motion on the floor to accept with the changes offered up by Janet for the wording that was actually said. Is there a second to approve with those changes?
I'll second. Alex.
Alex seconds. All those in favor of approving the minutes with the changes as indicated by Ms. Bellamy?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And abstentions. Anyone who was not here also should abstain. Okay, that passes. I see Nord has joined us also. Thank you, Nord.
Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you fine and nobody stole your spot. So you are fully seated. Okay, so the minutes are approved with that change. Moving on to public comment. We are open for public comment. Either raise your hand electrically or wave at me or scream out if there's any public comment to offer tonight. Let's see, people jumping around here. Okay. Hearing or seeing no indication for public comment, we will move on to bills. Mark or Mike, do you have anything to offer? I do have one.
I know that we're going to have a bill associated with some engineering, the engineering support for the Lakewoods Lane inspections that were recently completed. I don't have a final number on that, but I know that will be coming in for the closeout of the last fiscal year.
Is that coming out of our budget?
I don't know where the line actually sits in the town budget. So it may not come out of PZC directly. I'd have to look, but it will be billed to PZC.
Oh, okay. All right. We did receive one invoice from Valerie for the May meeting. Thank you, Valerie, for getting it in a timely fashion to get it into this past fiscal year. It's been submitted and approved with finance. I don't think we had any other bills on that. Moving on to the correspondence. The only correspondence received was from the Mansfield referral regarding, for lack of a better term, and dealing with 15 pages, changes to their zoning regs regarding multiple dwelling zones, or zoning for multiple dwellings in an area. Mike, do you want to comment on this? It's probably near and dear to your heart.
It's near to my heart. I don't know if it's dear to my heart, but yeah, I think we may have talked about this before, but this is Mansfield's new approach to how they're going to be handling essentially high density housing going forward. So they opened the public hearing on the 17th of June. It is still open, but it's basically going to be a special development district instead of sort of a standard special permit process.
Do you know when their next meeting is for that hearing?
I believe it's coming up. Might be next week. I can check on that.
Okay. I can find it out too. I just didn't know if you knew off the top of your head. Thank you. Anything being a neighboring governance that we should be concerned about?
No, this does not, the process doesn't like open up what would have otherwise been allowed. And so all of a sudden, you shouldn't expect to see, developments popping up in every piece, nook and cranny of Mansfield. It doesn't really make things easier from a development standpoint, if you will. So no, I don't think there's any glaring changes.
Is mostly this geared toward like 44 and 195 for them?
The eligibility is not specific to any one specific zone, but there's criteria based upon where you are for how big the parcel has to be and then what the density limits are.
Okay.
But so if you scroll, probably if you want to skip all of the pages, the the best way to look at it quickly would be to go to page, I think it's page 12, which has got like a little flow chart, which just kind of shows you the steps. To it's just changing the approval process and adding a lot of design criteria. Mansfield has learned a lot since they've approved like 1,200 units so far. And so we're trying to change the process so that they can become more involved in the sort of iterative design review process for how these projects go forward.
Okay. Any questions from the group regarding the Mansfield referral? Hearing none, we'll move on. Public hearings. We have no public hearing scheduled for this evening. Yay. Unfinished business. Commission discussion regarding the ID zone and the staff markup. Again, this is something that Mike has worked on to offer up to us. I don't have much more of a intro than that, Mike. I know you and I had some discussions regarding, I'll just lay this out for the commission. We probably really need to start looking at this as to what it is we want to do here. We either want to do something, we don't want to do something. If we want to do something, we need to figure out what it is. Potentially, we talked about engineers and input from developers and things like that, as opposed to just the commission trying to make decisions in a vacuum, so to speak. But Mike, do you want to talk
Sure.
about your markups?
Yeah, so I'm going to share the screen. I'll just show you what my comments are. The point here is to do one of two things. Just put some comments out in front of the commission so that you can develop an opinion one way or another. And the opinion may be, well, now that he said it, I agree. The opinion may be, well, now that he said it, I disagree. But we're coming up on, several months of sort of discussing this and getting input and kind of kicking it around. We're trying to figure out how to actually move the ball forward in some direction. And so I kind of marked this up just with my initial thoughts. And I know that everybody is thinking about this with respect to the application that we dealt with not so long ago, but really was quite a long time ago at this point. And, what I tried to do is just make these comments outside of that, because I think we would end up with a regulation that has gaps or is too broad brush if we sort of made these decisions based upon what just that one application that we saw. So I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to share. Hopefully you can see it in a second. Did it come up?
Yes, it
Yeah.
did.
Is it legible? Too small?
It's kind of tiny,
Yeah.
or I'm getting old. A little better. Thank you.
Okay. So this is the IID as it stands now. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of the comments again, just to kind of maybe start the conversation. So down here under B, permitted uses, if you'll notice, there are no permitted uses. We have a reference to accessory uses, but there isn't anything that's inherently allowed. If you want to do anything in the IID, you need a special permit. And so sort of off the bat, there is no by right. And so the comment here, which could go under permitted uses, could go under special permit uses the commission wanted. But what I'm suggesting is a lot of regulations and towns have language like this. As you go from less intense to more intense zoning, depending on how it's set up in the uses that are specified, a less intense commercial type use might also be allowed in an industrial type of zone, or a higher, more densely developed zone, or more in a zone that allows more intense uses. So one of the things I'm suggesting here is, if it's a use that's allowed in the general commercial zone, the commission should consider also allowing it in the IID. This is mostly to provide flexibility. Number two, The general commercial zone is more is populated in an area of town that is more closely closer to residential zones and uses. So if a use is allowed there and would be appropriate there, you'd think it'd be appropriate along the highway. Also, I think that as far as uses are concerned, the commission really needs to remain as open-minded as possible. The market will drive the uses. So you may not like a building size or building height, or you may not like the amount of parking, or a specific use may be too intense at the way in which it's proposed, but you can have the most artfully crafted list of uses ever. And if it doesn't align with what the parcel and the market and the geography sort of puts in front of you, we'll never see anything there. The second comment is related to the term manufacturing. Again, I think as we all know, this term should be clarified. Manufacturing can or cannot include things such as distribution and warehousing. If you have a building that is producing something, you have to then do something with that thing that you're producing. You can't make something and have it stay there. So then it needs to be packaged, it needs to be compiled, it needs to be shipped, whatever. These things are made and need to leave. And so to have some of that, this term I think is just misleading, because you can't have one without some of these other things. I don't think that regional farmers markets and farm stands and farm stores are uses that should be listed in the IID. This is the commission's sort of single most productive zone from a commercial grand list growth and a job standpoint. If you're going to create a business that's going to add to the grand list, create jobs, provide services to residents, etc., we shouldn't have the uses that are also allowed in the residential zone, such as farm stands. I don't think that we want to have that overlap. And I don't think that removing that makes Ashford not friendly to farming. I think, again, the whole point of zoning is to say these uses belong here and those uses belong there. Moving on to what I guess is the second page, maybe third. I think we should consider striking motels. We have the Ashford Motel that would become pre-existing non-conforming and could remain, but could not be expanded. I think we can leave hotels, but I'm not sure we need to allow or want to be encouraging further motel development. Wireless telecommunication sites. I know this was sort of a contemplated historically. If it falls under the umbrella of being a utility, like a cell phone tower would, it would be subject to the Connecticut Siting Council's review and would be exempt from local zoning. So I'm not sure that this needs to remain. And I'm not sure that we want to encourage a wireless telecommunication site not subject to the Connecticut Siting Council, again, on some of this development land. The next standard is, or the next piece is development standards, which is sort of the bulk and area type requirements. So my first comment is related to the commission considering a standard that would allow for more than 250,000 square feet only if multiple buildings or uses are proposed. So my takeaway was there wasn't a lot of love and support for expanding the building size much beyond where it is now. I think that when this regulation was written, 250,000 square feet was a big building. Now 250,000 square feet is not a big building. And you're seeing buildings between 1 and 4 million square feet being built across Connecticut. And again, with the market, if you want to compete for the use, you need to allow for a building size that will support what's happening there. So one of the things that I'm suggesting is the commission consider thinking beyond 250,000 square feet, whether that be in phases or multiple uses or tenants or something. So you don't end up with one huge 1 million square foot building, but you also can facilitate better use of the land because you're hopefully having one structure with multiple tenants. I think there's some flexibility that can happen there. The other piece to this, and I'm not sure if this is a typo or what, but if you look to the right for setbacks, we require 100 feet for the first 20,000 square feet of gross floor area. And then we require an additional 10 feet for each 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. And so that starts at 20,000, but we allow up to 250,000. So basically, once you get to 30,000 square feet, you've reached the maximum setback of 200 feet. I don't see a lot of value in that. Distance is not necessarily the best way to deal with a potential use, especially when it may be beneficial for a building to be slotted in a specific area of the property. Maybe you want to use the side property line, which abuts the interstate, but you've required 200-foot setbacks, and that isn't possible. Just an example. But I think that coupled with, if you try to, I tried to figure out the best way to show this graphically, but I just simply could not. But we have a 5-acre minimum. So if someone has, a 5-acre piece of property, they want to build a 32,000 square foot building. When you look at the fact that they need 400 feet of frontage, but then they're going to have a 200-foot side and rear yard setback, it takes up a substantial portion of the property. So again, I don't know that these setbacks really hit the ground in a way that is unilaterally providing for the best development of the site. And there's better and more efficient ways to protect against concerns related to lighting or visibility or landscape screening, et cetera. I went back to the previous version of the regs because I thought maybe this was a typo and it should be for each 10,000 square feet instead of 1,000 square feet, but the last version of the regs also was written that way. So, you have to go back to the original from when the IID was adopted to really know if that was in fact a typo. Moving down to building coverage, regulating building coverage separately when you're requiring these increased setbacks, and structure and dealing with them based upon structure size. Again, I'm not sure where all of this gets us in totality. I understand the value in coverage and wanting to make sure that you don't have substantial portions of the property developed, and not providing for landscaping and undisturbed areas of wetlands, et cetera. But a lot of that stuff is covered through other development standards. So just establishing again, if you look at, you can only have 25% of your lot size as covered in a building. You require a 5-acre minimum, and then you require the 200-foot setbacks for 30. We end up in this situation where you need a parcel much larger than what our standards actually require to be able to get a reasonably sized building, because you may meet 2/3 of the standards, but now you don't meet coverage, or you have 5 acres, but you need 200-foot setbacks, which you can't fit the building size that we would allow for. So I think there's a lot of unintended or unnecessary overlap. Building height. Building height is what you see for a residential structure. You can build a home at 35 feet high. Commercial construction has taller ceiling heights, which are required by code. Obviously, buildings that are larger require taller roofs simply because of pitch to get water and snow to move off the building. And frankly, I think at this point, we've heard enough over all of this contemplation that if you want a commercial building of any size, 20,000 square feet, 200,000 square feet, 35 feet tall is just not practical. It's not what people are building today, even at a smaller size. So I think that the commission needs to look at this, and this should be updated. I'm not sure I have any other comments. Nope, I don't. So that was my first pass. I'll go back to the beginning and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Uh, Mike, thank you. For those who haven't had an opportunity to review this beforehand, I'm sure it's a lot to digest, but I appreciate Mike trying to send it out beforehand and then giving us the background as to the changes or recommendations or whatever you want to call them. I guess the underlying question again becomes, does the commission feel that making the IID more marketable within certain limits is what we want to do? And I pose that to the group to comment on. Janet.
I appreciate all this, and I think these are all good talking points. However, we have, it's been brought up several times, the low impact development checklist that Jean Pillow gave us, and I was under the impression that most people thought it was a good idea. I think that should be brought up at our next meeting and look at how that might inform any changes to the regulations.
If I could just talk to that. So one of the things I didn't sort of get into in this first pass was all the things that we could add in. I sort of wanted to just take the existing language and sort of make some comments from there. Low impact development is something that a lot of towns use. It is something that more and more well-designed developments include sort of from the gate. And I think it's an important component. The key, I think, is that you'll see, if you look at a lot of LID and stormwater manuals, Tolland has one, CROG had grants for several towns to develop their standards. In a lot of cases, it comes down to what is deemed to be to the maximum extent practical, or what is practical, because based upon a whole slew of factors, which you won't know until you develop each specific property, you won't know if a specific solution is possible. It's really important in areas that have drainage, like, MDC towns, because what developers used to do is they would just take all the water, put it into a storm drain, run that pipe to the road and send it all to MDC and out into the Connecticut River. Now that's not what people are allowed to do. And so you're having to make all these improvements on your site so that you can capture the water, clean the water, treat the water, cool the water, whatever it is on your property. But that will vary. The solutions and how you do that and the extent to which that is possible will vary based upon the site. So I agree with you. We should include language which establishes sort of a baseline expectation that stormwater be handled via low impact development techniques. And then, we can get into the review of what that looks like based upon, or at least my suggestion would be based upon each individual development.
So can I just ask, so if we decided to approve a low impact development regulation or whatever you call it, that would not really impact our other regulations? It would just be another layer on it, or?
Yeah, so just like we require site plans to be an A2 level of accuracy, we require driveways to be a certain width and parking stalls to be 9 by 18. It would be a design standard. So it would be another component of the design that the engineer preparing the site plan would have to demonstrate. So you would get a stormwater management plan and a report to show how all the drainage on site has been designed, to what degree of storm it can function, and how they're going to handle infiltration into groundwater, and how they'll deal with, like I said, cooling the water if there's an issue with that, how they're going to deal with treating it and retaining it, so that the water that falls and is generated on the site is returned to the ground on the property.
Okay, thank you.
And Valerie, I just wanted to let you know that Jerry is having a problem. He has an ear infection that he wasn't able to hear what was going on, so he dropped off. So we're down one commissioner off of the, probably about, I'll tell you exactly when he sent that in. 7:23. So we don't have another as I see it here, I don't see another alternate, so we're just down one more commissioner for our votes and such. Luther, you have your hand up, your electronic hand.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Just two quick thoughts. One's a question that Mike might be able to answer, and one is a thought about, I was able to read Mike's comments earlier, and what comes to mind is it reinforces my notion that we need additional input from people that understand what the current market would support for development there. And I think until the commission has a fuller understanding of what that site would support, it's hard to understand what kind of regulations would be most appropriate for it. The caveat to that being, if the commission has decided or decides that this zone is no longer appropriate for this level of higher intensity development as it was designed, then that might be a moot point. But if this zone is going to continue to be identified as the place where higher intensity development is most appropriate, I think it would be beneficial to all of us to through some mechanism, have someone that's an independent expert in what the market would support in this type of a space, give us that information so that we can understand if the changes we're looking to do would support that. And if that's a part of the POCD, if that's a standalone exercise, whatever it is. That's my thought after reading Mike's comments. I think some of them were excellent. I like the catching of the subtle details of some of the nonsensical setback regulations, or maybe not nonsensical, but conflicting. The question I have for Mike is, if we do, or if anyone knows this, if we do enact a standard for low impact development for as we've been discussing, do those standards are those standards enforceable on top of what state deep is doing for large development sites? So, currently, if there's a 5-acre disturbed area, so if someone wants to come in and disturb more than 5 acres to build anything, deep has to issue a general permit for stormwater management. So it's a pretty high bar. And what I'm wondering is, can we layer on top of that, or do the state regulations supersede anything we might do if it gets to that 5-acre threshold?
So my experience is that they're a little bit siloed, because deep doesn't even get involved until they have all their entitlement work done. And so we will come in and we will say, you need to meet our LID standards, and here's what they are, and those will be addressed. But their deep standards are not necessarily all low impact development related. I have never seen a project go forward that had changes relate to their stormwater design or some other plan approved by the town because of something that the state wanted. I think the state really is more related to the operation of the project during construction. So they want to make sure that silt fence and sediment traps are being inspected on a regular basis. They want to make sure that you're monitoring during significant rain events. They want to make sure that, your stockpiles are correct, whatever it might be. You don't have too much land open and stripped. I think that it's really just during construction, whereas the LID stuff is the operation of the project once it is CO'd.
Thanks for that clarification, Mike.
Mark, your electronic hand.
Thanks. I'm not sure I fully agree with Luther on, the need for more input from experts. I mean, we had a public hearing on proposed changes, so I think we have a sense for at least where the Ashford Motel is located, what potential market there is out there for a 1 million+ square foot building, and the height required for a mega warehouse. And I'm not saying that's the direction we want to go, but I guess I think I have a sense for the size and scope of what current construction needs are. I think it's a matter of what size are we willing to allow in the IID zone, whether that be our current 250,000 square feet or multiple buildings not to exceed 250,000 square feet, or a single building larger than 250,000 square feet. I don't know that I need to see more market research on what the demand is.
Yeah, and it's entirely plausible that that's true and accurate, Mark. How are we to know if no one that's an expert tells us? I mean, one application doesn't give me the amount of information that I'd like to have to be able to make an informed decision personally.
So when you say a market expert, who are you looking at? Commercial real estate
No,
planners? I mean, that's who's the one that's going to market the property and look for prospective
I'd like to see
buyers.
More of a land development type of person.
Yeah, well, so again, this is maybe all of those things, right? So maybe it's a developer, maybe it's a land use expert that's, again, not biased in any way, doesn't live in town, doesn't have any preconceived notions of what we've been going through and looking at. It's just a complete fresh look at this is the zone. These are the types of uses with the resources that are present and with the constraints that are present that would fit a land mass and highway access and traffic access as currently exists. And if you want zoning regulations that would be supportive and favorable for those types of uses, this is what types of things might be critical for those uses. I mean, that would be, in my mind, that would be a home run scenario of being able to make an informed set of regulations. Is the what's, the whatnots, we thought we knew what we were doing with these regulations when we wrote them, and clearly things have changed and some of the marks may have been missed. So we didn't do this process the first time these regulations were written. So maybe it'd be a good exercise now. Maybe we don't need it. Maybe the collective wisdom of the commission can come together and pull this together. I like input personally. And if nobody else does, I'm also totally fine with that.
Nord.
I just wanted to say that I like Mike's updates to these regs, because we have to remember we do want to have development in this area. And the other thing I like to say is that these regs have served us well in the past, and I would be in favor of keeping them intact except for those updates. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Nord. Mike, you and I were speaking regarding, oh, I'm sorry, Steve, you have your hand up. Go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks. This is actually just a small question. I think I'm missing something. So Mike, in the first comment you have You say quite reasonably, in my view, that there should be some statement allowing any of the permitted uses in the general commercial zone. But then the third comment crosses out farm stands and farm stores, which is one of the permitted uses allowed in the general commercial zone. So I just trying to make sense of, like, I don't think we'd have both of those statements where you could have everything allowed in the general commercial zone is allowed, but then we're gonna not allow one of the things. Maybe I'm missing something, but maybe you can help explain that.
Yeah, so I think that if we were gonna lump those in, we could either list them again separately. I put it in under permitted because I didn't want the comments to overlap. I don't know that we would want all of those to be permitted by right. So a lot of that stuff would then be slotted in under the special permit uses. So if the commission thought it was appropriate, we could list all of them or some of them separately. I just think if you can have an office or a retail building or something in a commercial zone, we should consider allowing it, at least in the IID. But yeah, apologies for it being confusing.
I can see you. I had to jump around. Thank you, Steve.
Can I add one more thing, Jeff?
Absolutely, Mike.
So we talked about this, I believe, when the first text amendment application went before the commission very, very early, probably 2020.
Mhm.
And the other option for this entire thing, which is how the SDZ was set up in Willington, it is how Mansfield is approaching their high density housing regs, which I wrote, is the special development district. And that is an entirely different zoning process. And the idea behind it is you establish the zone, you create the ceiling. So you say, we don't want anything that's more than 150 feet tall. We don't want anything that's more than 5 million square feet. I'm obviously dramatizing it right now, but you establish the maximums if you feel they should exist. You may say, you may want to include use categories. Maybe you just want to say certain uses aren't allowed. But essentially putting up those guide rails, and then you leave the rest open. The special development district process, or floating zone, if you want to call it that, would require the developer to come in with a conceptual plan and basically make a master plan. So IID parcel 1, that's 25 acres, may show up with 100,000 square foot building, and maybe the setbacks are 50 feet from the front, 87 feet from the side, and 44 feet from the rear. And they want to propose a research facility. And you think, yep, that's great. We're good with all that because there's not a lot of noise. There's no external evidence. There's no outside materials. There's only one shift per day. We're good with it. Boom. You approve the master plan, which is at the conceptual level. And then the developer comes back in with a site plan at 100% design that complies with the master plan. If he doesn't, he goes back to step 1. Then if you approve that, that essentially becomes a one-off set of zoning regulations for that development. Those setbacks, the bulk and area, the height, the building coverage, the stormwater, the lighting, all of that applies to that parcel. The next parcel over comes in a year later. They start from the beginning and they show you a concept plan that shows uses and buildings, etc. And if you land that zone, that becomes its own separate master plan and its own essentially set of zoning regulations. So there's the benefits to that are that you have much more flexibility and control. And the reason why that to me is potentially fruitful here is because I don't think there's a lot of benefit to coming up with a list of uses, because the market now is going to be different than the market in 2 years. And we will have a list of uses that are not adaptive to what we've got. And so the benefit there is an appropriate use that's appropriately designed on a parcel that is large enough to accommodate that development. You can have all the flexibility in the world with landscaping and lighting and parking and stormwater, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but you're not trying to take a one size fits all approach.
That's just what I was gonna say. It sounded like that you're not, as opposed to going with a one size fits all, anywhere
Right.
from 100,000 to 1 million square feet and the various uses and such. You're more specific. That doesn't open up to, and obviously if you're bringing it up, I'm sure it doesn't, but I'm gonna ask a question. That doesn't bring it up to, either, what's the term I'm looking for? Unfair zoning, or not a consistent offer to two different developers in the same spot.
Well, so they're still going to develop the site under the general parameters of whatever the zone is drafted under. So if you look at the
That
Mansfield
maximum,
regs, right,
that
Yep.
5,150 feet you were talking
Right.
about, right?
right. But the ultimate negotiation between the commission and the developer comes down to, well, we're not comfortable with the building being so close to that southerly property line because we think that, that's a residential use, and maybe not now, but in the future, there's going to be some development there. So, we really would like to either pump up the screening in that area, or can we tweak this? Can we pull the building closer to the road so we can get some greater setbacks there? Those are the types of discussions that you have. And the benefit is you don't require the developer to spend significant amounts of money on a site plan before he even knows, or she even knows, or they even know what the commission thinks about it. The I don't want to call it a downside. The requirement for the special development district is that the commission has to have, and I'm not suggesting you don't, but the commission, or any commission, has to have a level of commitment and vision to what's going to be developed there, because what will happen is someone's going to show up with a master plan. They're going to show up with buildings located on a site, and you're going to have to, as a commission, come together and decide if the development and the uses and the intensity as proposed is appropriate, and allow it to move forward without being able to say, well, see, it's listed here as a permitted use. So it requires a little bit more conviction and sort of being focused on what the POCD allows. And maybe that means we pump up the purpose statement, or we really bolster the language to provide some support. But the commission really gets put into the driver's seat in a lot more sort of a fashion than it would under the public hearing process. And the last thing I'll note is that this does not change the public input process. This does not remove a public hearing requirement. This does not allow for things to happen behind the scenes. This doesn't take away something that would normally have happened in the light and make it happen sort of on some other side of the table. This all still would happen in front of the commission at multiple meetings. There would be public hearings. It would be a zone change. There would be abutters. That whole process still occurs.
That's
So
very,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Luther.
I was just saying that's very interesting. I think that's very, very interesting. I don't think things like that existed when this was written.
No, yeah, no, the floating zones and such. And that's the thing, is that it seems to allow us to show, well, one, if we just said no to everything, then obviously a bias could, be shown at some point in here, if it was just no, 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 no to whatever was put out to us. But what we are committing to is development, controlled development in that area that, like you said, we have input on each and every specific development that takes place, to meet the needs of the commission and all the people of Ashford, all the residents of Ashford, not just groups that have a certain bias on something that can be addressed with each individual, not that cookie cutter regulations that we've been kind of, not to belittle it in any way, Luther. I mean, that's obviously, what we had and what we've dealt with for all these years, and things have changed with what people can do. I love what Mike Gardner said previously when we were talking about having bedrock requirements, or drilling for bedrock in our zoning regulations. Dynamite's a wonderful thing, or a wonderful invention. It doesn't stop us from doing things with bedrock. I'm sorry, Janet, go ahead.
That's all right. I was wondering, Mike, maybe you mentioned it and I forgot, but what towns have implemented this? And have any of them like used it successfully for development?
So, I mean, there's many towns across the state that use this in sort of a modified or, you know, their own version of what they'll call a floating zone or special development district. The SDZ is what we called it in Willington, which is what the warehouse project came in under. And we were talking about it recently at a meeting, and you know, a lot of people take issue with the SDZ and think that somehow that's how the warehouse application showed up in Willington, and it is not. But just like what happened in Ashford, an application was submitted, it wasn't deemed appropriate by the commission, and it was denied. The only other thing that I'll say on it is when you're dealing with something like a special development district, just as you would with a text amendment, the commission has got their planning hat on. And based upon statute and under the law, you're acting in your legislative capacity, which basically means in so many words, you can do what you want. When you're thinking about things in the legislative sense, you're looking at the POCD, you're looking at the zoning regs, all referred to together as the comprehensive plan of Ashford, and you're not held to the same standards as when you're approving something like a special permit or a site plan. So the commission can say, you know what, we don't think this is appropriate because the sky is purple, and you don't have the same potential risk of an appeal and being sued, et cetera, because you're acting in your legislative capacity. You're making those decisions as a planning commission. When you're looking at a site plan or a zone or a special permit, you're making the decision as a zoning commission, and you have you have to be much more focused on your approvals and your denials and why you're finding this is appropriate or not appropriate. So there's an increased level of flexibility because of how that process has to happen.
I just wanted to put out there, I think I've mentioned this before, that I think having well-conceived regulations and POCD informs developers of what we would like to see, so that so that people aren't spending a lot of money on something that will ultimately be turned down. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, I think, personally, I think, yeah, we do need to, you know, round out these regs or, you know, make some improvements on the, what's there. But as Mike said, and if I kill this, Mike, stop me immediately. You know, what goes on is that it's almost like a preliminary hearing, if you will, or a preliminary meeting when they come out with their master plan first to find out, is this something that the commission could get behind? And if they get all indications saying that, yeah, this is something that, you know, with the proper development, we would get behind this, then they can come back with their full development plan. And that's when we can tweak it based on our standards and based on just the nature of what our vision is for zoning in Ashford. Is that close, Mike?
Yes. Yep. So I'm trying to just pull up, I'll share it.
While Mike pulls that up, I'm just wondering if it would be appropriate for us to have homework as a commission to be assigned looking at some of these types of regs to inform ourselves as to what they look like. I've never seen them, so I mean, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to find if Mike can take us in the right direction. I'll be very curious to look at some regs and see what these look like.
So this is the concept plan that was presented when the warehouse was proposed in Willington. So what this shows you is the site. It shows you the building. It shows you the approximate location of parking. You'll see here approximate location of wetlands. The access shows you approximately how many parking spaces, approximately what the use is. Their narrative included, here's what we're gonna propose the building used to be. So we've got this as a starting point, but they have not gone through and spent the time and the energy to do the geotechnical reviews, all the specific delineations and all these other requirements to this point, because that takes 6 months and probably requires a couple $100,000. And then they show up as what happened in Wellington, the commission said, thanks, but no thanks. And now all that money is out the window. The idea here is they have enough to be able to demonstrate feasibility, but they haven't put so much time and energy and resources into it that they should otherwise be open to, hey, can we move this around? Is there any way we can kind of pinch this further to the north so that we can hold a better line away from that wetland there? We're really concerned about where this driveway access is. Can we do something here? You have some of those discussions. If you approve this goes along with a zone change. So you land the SDD, the Special Development District, on that one property in compliance with an approved master plan. And then they come back, and in the case of what we wrote in Wellington, and the same thing we're doing in Mansfield, if they get that approved, if they get their master plan approved, they get the zone change part done, they have to come back within 12 months. If they don't, the master plan expires and they have to go back and get it approved a second time. The reason we're doing that in Mansfield is that we didn't want people to bank all of these high density housing approvals for 5 years, and the commission have no idea whether they're going to see 1,000 units or 5,000 units. So if you're going to go before the commission and you're going to ask them to approve something, you're going to come back within a year with a site plan that says you actually intend on doing it. Now, the site plan is going to be good for at least 5 years or more, depending on statute, but they've spent the time and energy to show the project can go forward. They've got it designed, and it's gone through the approval process. So, I mean, I can show you, we've done this. I've written one in East Windsor. We did one in East Hartford for the Showcase, old Showcase Theaters properties, and their whole Silver Lane development area. Hartford does it this way. I think South Windsor has them. I mentioned we have a similar version in Wellington. Mansfield already has this process. Their mixed use transition zone is set up the same way. So they have a couple. So they are around, and the courts have specifically upheld them as a legitimate zoning tool. They don't qualify as spot zoning, et cetera, et cetera. So it is something that you can do, and it's not a magic solution. It's not, solving all problems. There's still a lot that has to happen, but it's an alternative.
What I also like is, and we heard this through the hearings and since then with various groups, whether they were biased or not biased, that you don't, how did it go? You don't go by size and height on in developing some parcels of land. You really go by what the site can handle based on, we talked about the I'm sorry, I can't remember what that tool was from UConn with Clear that was used in looking at that zone. And I think, I'm speaking more of Mr. Vidic, his reports on that, which really brought down the size of that parcel that was dealt with during the text amendment and the potential warehousing, where what was appropriate for the wetlands and the water and all of that. This gives us an opportunity to look at take each individual master plan or potential master plan on its individual merits, and then go from there with the development that we can kind of, as Mike said, kind of tweak and move here, move there, that would become more acceptable for not only the commission, but the residents we represent here in Ashford. Okay. Any other input? Yes, Janet.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions about how this works. So when they come in with the master plan, would there be a public hearing about that?
Yes. Yep, because the master plan is dealt with in conjunction with the zone change to actually change the zone to that special development district zone. So it would be handled like a zone change, so there would be a public hearing part of it.
And then we would already have regulations in place about height.
We would
And-
have standards for maximum, so in any, you know, in any such case, maximum building height shall not exceed 75 feet. Maximum building size shall not exceed 300,000 square feet, whatever it is. So they may come in with something that's 56 feet, and they may come in with a building that's, you know, whatever, specific to the property. You're just gonna set those guardrails. Here's the things you must do, here's the things you can't do.
And then if we looked at this site and there were other specific things we wanted them to do, we could tell them they had to do those as well.
Yes, yeah, so it kind
It's
of
almost
goes
like they
both
get two
ways.
bites at the, Mike, is it almost like they get two bites at the apple, so to speak?
Yeah, hold on. So this is the piece that came from the Mansfield reg, but it kind of shows you. So in this case, we're folding in a pre-application staff review. So then they go to the Commission for Conceptual Development Review, which is informal. They then submit the master development plan and zone change application. The commission has a public hearing. They then issue a decision on the master plan and the zone change. And with the assumption here that it's approved, then they come back in with a fully compliant site plan, which is like an actual site plan document saying, okay, we've done all of our homework. We've designed everything per your requirements, per the master plan. We've checked every single box. We are fully compliant. The commission issues the decision. At that point, you're looking to make sure that all the design criteria have been satisfied. But the use, the building size, all those things have already been determined. So there's no public hearing at that point. It would be at the front end. And then you issue that decision. And it would be, like I said, it would be required to be in compliance with the master plan that the commission approved.
And if we wanted them to give us a hire experts for whatever reason, that would be done when we're looking at the master plan. So we'd say you have to give us this information.
Yeah, if it was, yeah, depending on what the specific pieces were, or what you were looking to have someone review, yeah, you'd say we want to have a third party review of the following. And so you could have them review at that point. If it was for something like stormwater, that would be done at the site plan phase. But you could do it at the master plan and zone change level. It just depends on, you know, what level of information they have. But we have an ordinance that allows for that, so you could do that at either point.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comment or input from the commission? So Mike, you gave us a list of some areas to look at, some places to look at, looking for this special development zone, floating zone.
Yep.
Okay, so I would recommend Luther's this is Luther's fault. No. Luther's suggestion about homework for the commission to please, actively go out, take a look at these, see if you think it's something that's workable for us. I know some of these places are obviously much larger than us, but and obviously they deal with a larger development more frequently than we do. But we need to get our heads in the game and really. I'm actually quite buoyed up by this floating development plan and the special development that lets us look at each individual request. Again, not in a cookie cutter, not in a one size fits all, but what are they looking to offer what are they looking to put out there? Is it development we want? And we can control that development without having minimal or new regulations to work with. Janet,
Um, sort of off the track, but for my own peace of mind, I would really like us at some point to ask the fire department to come and talk to us about how they would deal with these large buildings if we increase the height. I know that the fire chief wrote that it was okay to have whatever it was, a 55-foot high building, but I would just like to have him come talk to us about it. Or maybe Luther can address that. I don't know.
Luther.
I can say I'll ask the chief if he can schedule in some time to come to a meeting and speak to that. I can also say by and large, the way that's going to be handled is the way that any large incident gets handled, which is through mutual aid. So the way that rural fire services work is that not every town has the budget to have every conceivable device that they would need to take on any given scenario. So the towns all work with each other to provide what's called mutual aid. So a pre-incident plan would be developed, and we have these for multiple facilities throughout the town already at the fire department. Pre-incident planning is done with the chief, with the fire marshal, with the facility operator to identify response protocols for various levels of incidents. And so any kind of development that would go in anywhere in town, it wouldn't have to be just here. The fire marshal, the fire chief, possibly even personnel from other towns would come in and would develop a pre-incident plan so that the dispatch is well aware of it, so that the department's well aware of it, and all the surrounding towns are well aware of it. So if there's a fire incident or a hazmat incident or anything happens, there's a prescribed response card that the dispatch has in their computer-aided dispatch system. And the 911 call comes in, oh, we have a fire at 123 Main Street in this zone, and the card is pre-populated in their system, and it dispatches a tower truck from Yukon and a ladder from Stafford and a tanker from Wellington and a tanker from Mansfield, whatever it might be. All these pieces are immediately dispatched to respond. And so Ashford's able to draw on the surrounding towns for additional resources as needed for any incident. Does that make any kind of sense?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
understand.
absolutely.
Okay, let me just ask, I'm sorry, ask clinical. I understand mutual aid. Yeah, I get that. I sort of wonder, as more and more larger buildings are built, are we, at what point do we stress out the system? So, if there's a fire at Yukon and we have a fire, is there enough coverage?
Yeah, that's a great question. And by and large, yes, because we don't see a tremendous amount of large fire. They're actually not that common. We see some, but I mean, most of these buildings are going to be fully sprinklered and have their own internal fire suppression systems. And
Right.
if there's a massive fire in a massive building, I mean, even a box store, even something like a Home Depot, depending on the conditions in a building like that, you're not even necessarily putting resources in the building. You're hooking up fire apparatus to the sprinkler systems, and you're providing more water and you're providing more pressure, and you are not going in. And it's a there are practical measures behind this. So to your point, I don't believe, and the chief will speak much better to this than I will because he has much more experience than I do. But from what I've learned with the courses and certs I've done and the people I talk to, it's not so much an issue of resource depletion, because you have to also look at it that as the computer-aided dispatch utilizes resources from one particular area, it automatically starts shifting resources in the satellite communities to be able to provide additional coverage through their cascading mutual aid. So the problem of resource saturation is diffused.
Thank
And,
you.
I'm not going to step out of my comfort zone here, but I really think also from what Luther was saying is that, one small fire in Ashford and one large fire in Yukon, yeah, things would be, depleted, but two small fires in Ashford and our staffing and such and our resources are pretty much depleted right now too. It's not like you have the ability to respond to potentially two in the town itself when it comes to something like that.
Yeah, it would be situationally dependent, but we do almost any structure fire is going to be a mutual aid structure fire, even if it's a
Right,
resident.
right.
We're going to
It's going to have to
get
because of,
from mutual aid towns, and we're also going to go provide support to mutual aid towns. Structure fires are an all hands kind of a scenario even now. Often.
and that's not necessarily even large buildings. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, because also a day like today when it's super hot. I mean, we had a single family residence last year that we were at literally all night long, and we had, I want to say 5 or 6 towns there because staffing. People are going to heat stroke out
Right.
if you can't rest. So it's already, there's a great system in place for dealing with this.
Thank you, Luther. Thank you for your expertise on that. Appreciate it. Any other
And I
comment?
will
Go ahead.
escalate and get an actual expert to come in and talk to everybody as well.
Tell Paul he has an open invitation to speak to us. Okay. Anything else from anyone on this? Mike, thank you for the input. Commissioners, thank you for the discussion on that. Next piece is POCD update.
One, this is a public hearing, right, Mr. Chairman?
No, this is not a public hearing, Mr. Rotalakis.
Not a public hearing.
No. This is our regular meeting. We don't, we offered up for public comment earlier. If you wish to send something into us for an email or for our next meeting to discuss, that's absolutely fine.
Well, in all fairness, though, to me,
No, sir.
way
No,
this-
sir. It's not in all fairness. It's not in all fairness. It's our procedure and it's the way our commission works.
just, Mr. Chairman, if I could be heard just for one moment. The way your meeting was
You can keep
posted,
asking for that, sir, but you're kind of stomping on our procedures, and I would normally, and I have cut you some slack before in the past.
your meeting was
So
posted
if you-
canceled, and these documents just came online this morning.
Our meeting was posted as canceled. That was last
On the
last
website.
month's meeting.
No, this one too, as well.
Does can anyone else confirm that for me? This was canceled, but posted as canceled with our agenda?
The agenda came online, but these public documents did not come online until this morning.
And you are speaking of which documents?
These documents that about the IID zone.
The staff markup
Yes,
and such?
correct.
This is Mark Schnobel. The staff markups are showing they were loaded 5 days ago.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Mark.
I don't believe that's true.
Well, what you believe and what we have showing for when these were posted are two different things, Mr. Rotalakis. So if you wish to provide comment to us, please submit it to us. We'll be happy to bring it up with our next meeting.
Okay,
Thank
fair
you.
enough.
Okay. POCD update. What I just wanted to share was, and I'll try and do this with sharing my screen. And, okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to give credit where credit is due for the POCD assignments. I did send out the letter back in March. To his credit, Luther was first one to respond back. It's a little bit like herding cats. We've gotten back from the Ag Commission, we've gotten back from the Clean Energy Task Force Commission, and I have very, very strong promises from EDC that they have theirs written, their pieces put together. They just haven't put it into a format to submit as of yet.
The Conservation Commission has theirs written. It needs formatting, and that is I'm the backlog there, so I apologize, but.
No, you know, yeah, that's fine. Not looking for blame, just letting you know where we stand. So we've gotten 3 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 departments. And so not a lot to work on, but I did want to show you with this document here, and I've got to get you people out of the way so I can see it there. So again, the department updates coming in, it will be very helpful to us to work with those. Again, we're having the experts in those areas give us the feedback that's needed for updates. The Planning and Zoning Commission, our updates, one of the things is that as of July 1, we've contracted with Tyche to work with us. And they have a scope of work that they've provided to us for what their activities will be. And for our own needs and for our own assignments as the Planning and Zoning Commission, reviewing other towns' POCDs, we will work probably we will need to work on the executive summary, the general overview of Ashford. There's a section in there that shows Ashford from 2015 to 2025. So this one obviously will be 25 to 35. The plan implementation, how we will maintain and update it. I would love to add in an annual review as opposed to, falling behind the 8 ball every 10 years and not having it updated on a regular basis. We had the best of intentions for an annual review. So we'll continue to try and get that implemented. Looking at the action plans and objectives of each of the departments as they submit them. And of course, our overall jobs will be editing, review, potentially a hearing or public comment gained, public input, and submission to the state and publication. So I think working with Tyche and their scope of work will be very helpful to us. It would take the place of the NECOG, who worked with us the last time and gave us some information, charts and graphs and maps and such. So I think we have a good consulting group in Tyche and Mike and his group. But this is really where we are standing right now with the POCD. I will be sending out a bad commission letter. Ideally, I wanted to get it out before this meeting, but I was not able to for personal reasons. What we'll do is get a letter out to those groups, reminding them nicely, nudging them, whatever, to provide their background information. And I can be honest with you, I actually missed a couple. Education did not come up in the previous, the copy that I got from NECOG, nor the one that Mike received and provided, or the one that Dick Williams provided. So we need to reach out to education to get them on board. And I missed housing. I forgot to send it out to the Housing Authority, and I've since sent that out to them, requesting their information. Again, a lot of the housing, I think, is going to have a lot to do with affordable housing on our part to add to it, but I'd like to get their input as to what they see. I know they have a large grant out there that they've asked for updating the senior housing here in town, the Housing Authority. So that would be a nice piece to add into this. So more to come on this, obviously, but I just wanted to show you that, it's slow. Again, when we have a few more of these together, I think we'd like to have the subcommittee sit and go over those and talk about some of the information that came in, how it came in, what came in, and sharing that with the full commission as we move forward and meeting on this on a regular basis, each meeting that we have. Any questions or input about POCD? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go on to short-term rental. I was able to work on the short-term rental application as a template. I've tried to add in a few items here. Again, making it Ashford's with the sections and such like that. My whole thought process is on this, and if you tell me, Jeff, you're all wet, stop doing this. I'm fine. Let me share my screen with you because I was looking at it and you weren't. Here we go. There we go. So again, the fees and such are different. This is coming from Preston, so we're plagiarizing from Preston, Connecticut. My whole thought process is that if we make if we make the application process a little more complete, a little more skin in the game, if you will, for the information that the applicant has to put in for us, then we'll get a little more compliant out there and right at the front, right at the get-go, as opposed to finding out that someone is not following the required information. And again, there are a number of things in here that can be, taken out if we feel it's too much. But again, I'd like to have people be accountable. And this includes, this is just the 2-page application itself. And then it gets into, it's almost a redundancy, but it's a reestablishment of what they are agreeing to. They're signing and they are having it notarized that they agreed to it. I think it holds some more teeth. Maybe gives Mike a little bit more to stand on when it comes to compliance and enforcement of compliance. So I will get this posted for review by the group. I'll send it into Mike and he can put it up following the meeting. But input, listening and taking input.
I think we mentioned before that we don't want to make it so difficult that people don't comply. And I'm wondering about the site plan and site drawings seem, I don't know. Could people use photographs instead, or just a thought?
It's open for discussion and review. If we're feeling that it doesn't have to be a full site plan, it has to be some type of a diagram or photographic evidence or whatever. We can go along those lines. We can adjust it. Nora, do you have a hand up?
Hey, no.
Oh.
I think it looks good.
Oh, it's my hand. I'm sorry. It's my hand over your picture. Again, 2 schools of thought. Janet was thinking it might be a little too, it would keep people from being, I guess the situation is, yeah, we can make some adjustments to it, but if it's just a matter of them paying money and not being accountable for it, I think that lacks for what we can, for what we, should be holding them accountable for. You've signed something, you've actually gone through the process of having it notarized, that hopefully that instills compliance in them. The other question is, does this remain, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I think you're muted, Mark.
Yeah, I keep trying to click on it. It won't let me talk. No, I like the application. I think it's a good idea. And correct me if I'm wrong. They can get a site plan right at the town hall of their property. Isn't that correct? They pull their file.
If we have one where, we can give it to them when we're dealing with certain properties, particularly around the lake, We don't usually have site plans. We can do GIS maps and other things. We don't necessarily have a survey. Depends.
Okay.
Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I like the application too, and I feel like if somebody's gonna go through the trouble of doing this, they should be able to, you know, follow the rules. You know, if they're gonna put the time in and be serious about it, they have to know that we're serious about it also.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Thank you. Mike, was there new legislation that came down that I don't know how the legislators put it, but it was that ordinances for short-term rentals can be put in place by the town legislative body?
Right. Yep.
So if we if we give recommendations and pass this off to the selectmen, then an ordinance again, and if this is redundant, I'm sorry, but an ordinance does not grandfather current bed and breakfasts. I'm sorry, the short-term rentals. They need to be compliant with the new regs also. If we make this simply a regulation, those folks that have already gone through the permitting process have done everything they need to do. They don't need to be any more compliant than what the current regs are that they signed up under. So that's food for thought for the commission to consider also. How much teeth we want to have in this, and do we need to corral in those folks that already have permits out there?
Mhm.
So what I'd like to do also is, if anyone, and Janet, I'll take your suggestion to heart, and if there's any input on this, once I send it out to you, please take a look at it, because I'd like to run it by Ken Slater before we put something out, just in case he feels or stepping out of my lane, so to speak, or the commission is stepping out of its lane for what it can or cannot require on this. Again, I don't think the rules are changing daily, but I think new rules and new precedents are being set on a regular basis in the courts and such. So hopefully Ken can give us a update as to, are we going down a good path or not going down a good path with this? But I'd like to give him something to sink his teeth into and take a look at. So I will say, again, I'll have Mike post this to our meeting materials, and then please take a look at it, give me your input. Anything you think needs to be either expanded or shortened or removed or added, please, let me know.
Thank you for doing that, Jeff.
Oh, no problem. Oh, Mike, I just wanted to mention also, there's a typo, unless you already knew about this, in, where did I lose it here? It's just up above our short-term rental. That's too far in. I gotta get back here. That's too far. Here we go. Yeah, in section, what I have, 317C, 17C. Just put this in your tickle file or something. It says short-term rentals in accordance with 310, 17D. We don't have a 310.
Let's see. You're reading off of,
I'm reading off of the zoning regs. Again, under zoning districts, section 4, 300-17C, 17C.
300-17C is our special permit uses.
Right, and then you go to 17C under that.
17C is the list of special permit uses. And then you're saying
Yes,
go,
but under C is 1 through 18.
yeah, and so then if you go to 17C again, short-term rentals in accordance with 310-17D, and if you go to D is the section for short-term rentals.
No, 310 is my issue.
310.
It's
I'm sorry.
300.
Oh, you're saying it's section 310-17.
Right, 310 instead of 300.
And where are you seeing that?
Short-term rentals in accordance with 310-17D.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Sorry, I'm looking at the index on the E code. Okay, so it's incorrectly referencing. Gotcha. All right.
Okay, thank you. Not to be a nudge, but thank you.
No, that was, yeah, that would have been codified by general code, so we'll have to let them know.
Okay.
They reference that in the
All right.
section below too. 300, they reference 310- for campgrounds. So I got to figure out why they did that.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. You caught that too. Okay. All right. On to new business. And where do we go here? Whoops. That's not it. Meeting agenda. Yes. Under new business, PZ-24-2 text amendment application to section 300-18 and 300-21 pertaining to live work units in the general commercial zone. Applicant R standing. The application is available online. This is simply for receipt, no discussion or action needed. Mike, has all fees for the application been paid?
Yes. So they've submitted everything. So after receipt tonight, I have to do the regional referrals, etc. So
Yep.
I think I can make the deadlines for the August meeting. That would be the plan for public hearing.
Okay. And I saw that the changes to the text are also part of our meeting materials, correct?
Yes.
The wording?
The proposed amendment is uploaded for tonight. Yep. As the application and yep, both should be there.
Okay, great. So please ask commission members a little bit more homework to review that. And unless there's it's really just a receipt. So is there a motion to receive the application?
So moved, Janet.
Janet? Is
Second,
there a
Alex.
second? Second by Alex. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Last item, Mike, zoning officer's report or zoning enforcement officer report.
So other than the IID stuff, which you saw, met with several new property owners about various things, both commercial and residential. We've been kind of doing a little bit of double duty chaos in the office because we're, well, I guess maybe technically now not anymore, but we've been down a wetland agent. So things in the office have been a little bit crazy, and I've been trying to help Lenny with his agendas and making sure that applications and things are processed, because they got to go to wetlands in most cases before they can come to zoning and building. So we don't want things to kind of stall out. Couple of minor enforcement items that we're working on, and we talked about the short-term rental legislation. I expect there to be like some type of written update that we can provide. There was also a decision in the Connecticut Supreme Court case related to legal notices and what qualifies as substantial circulation. Nothing that we need to really use to change what we're doing, but it's, informative if nothing else. So that's what's been going on.
New website. Will we be able to take advantage of some postings and information and updates with the new website? Or am I like just pie in the sky?
No, so we met last week, maybe the week before, with the vendor. They are in the process now of basically over the last month or so, departments have been going through and making sure that if there's anything that's incorrectly posted online or like a bad link or something, it was fixed. Now Civic Plus is going through and they're going to be migrating redundant versions of everything that's on our current website onto the new draft version of the new website. So they're going to say, okay, everything as of like July 8th that's on your current website is what we're going to use as content to build the foundation of the new website. So once we get that squared away, we'll be able to go and kind of add new stuff. But yeah, the new website will have like a document repository. It'll have like agenda management and meeting files, and it'll be much more user friendly. So we'll be able to post things and have subscriptions. So you can say, I want to hear about documents posted for planning and zoning, etc. So yes, it will have all that functionality.
Cool. Very neat. Okay. Any questions from the group for Mike? Hearing and seeing none and no hands. Do I hear a motion to adjourn for this evening?
So moved, Janet.
Janet, thank you, Janet. Is there a second?
Second.
Tom seconded. All those in favor for adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention. You got a little bit of homework. Look up those floating zoning districts and at the towns mentioned. Hopefully Valerie caught that. But if you need to, we can get an email sent out to you too for who to be looking up. And also take a look at the application. And if you can add anything to it or you think something should be pulled out, please, let me know and then I'll share with Ken. Thank you for your attention. Have a good evening. Stay cool over this week. It's going to be tough.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right.
Take care.